Matthew 22 verses 1 to 14 presents to us the parable of the wedding banquet, one of the most profound teachings of Jesus about the kingdom of heaven. In this story, a king prepares a great wedding feast for his son, a symbol of God the Father preparing the eternal banquet for his Son, Jesus Christ. The wedding feast represents heaven itself, a celebration of union, love, and joy in the presence of God. The king sends his servants to invite the guests, but they refuse. Some ignore the invitation, going back to their farms and businesses, while others mistreat and even kill the messengers. This is a striking reminder of how God has invited his people throughout history, through prophets, through his word, through his church, and yet many reject or ignore the invitation. We see here not just a story of ancient Israel, but also a reflection of our world today. Many people are so consumed with daily life, work, ambitions, and personal pursuits that they have no time for God. The king represents God's unending generosity and patience. He keeps inviting, even after rejection, because he truly desires all people to come to his banquet. Then comes the surprising part. Since the invited guests refused, the king opens the invitation to everyone: the poor, the sick, the forgotten, the broken, and the sinners. This shows us the incredible inclusivity of God's kingdom. No one is too far away. No one is unworthy of being called. God's invitation is not limited to the so-called righteous, but is extended to the least, the lost, and the last. This is the beauty of grace. However, the parable does not end here. When the king comes into the hall, he notices one man without a wedding garment. The garment symbolizes not just attendance but preparation. It represents living a life clothed in righteousness, faith, and love. It is not enough to simply accept the invitation with words. We must also live out our faith with sincerity. The wedding garment reminds us that following Christ requires transformation. We cannot come into God's presence on our own terms, but only by allowing Him to clothe us with holiness. This detail may feel harsh, but it conveys an important truth. Grace is freely given, but it must be received with responsibility. God provides the garment of grace, but we must choose to wear it. This is a warning against complacency. It is possible to say yes to God outwardly but still refuse to change inwardly. So what does this mean for us today? First, we must recognize that we are all invited. No matter who we are, what we've done, or how far we've strayed, God's invitation is real and personal. Every day, through prayer, through the scriptures, and through life's circumstances, God calls us to His banquet of joy. Second, we must respond wholeheartedly. The tragedy of the parable is that many ignored the invitation because they were too busy. We too risk missing out on God's presence if we fill our lives only with material things and worldly concerns. Third, we must examine whether we are wearing the wedding garment. Are we truly living as followers of Christ? Are we clothed with compassion, forgiveness, humility, and love? Or are we still trying to come before God with pride, selfishness, and sin? The garment is a reminder that faith is not just belief in words but a transformed life. Finally, this parable challenges us to share God's invitation with others. Just as the king sent his servants to invite everyone, we too are called to extend God's love to those who feel unworthy, abandoned, or forgotten. Our mission is to remind them that God has prepared a place for them at His table. In summary, Matthew 22 verses 1 to 14 teaches us that the kingdom of God is like a wedding banquet, overflowing with joy, love, and abundance. The invitation is open to all, but it demands a response. God desires not just our presence, but our hearts transformed. As we live our daily lives, let us not be distracted by temporary concerns, but instead accept God's invitation, put on the garment of righteousness, and prepare ourselves for the eternal feast. If we live with this awareness, our lives will no longer be ordinary. Every action, every prayer, every act of kindness will become a way of preparing for the banquet. May we not only hear God's call, but also live in such a way that when the King looks upon us, He sees us clothed in the garment of faith, ready to enter His joy forever.